Okay, so everyone, thanks for joining us today, our second episode of GladiEditors. So if you recall, the first episode last week, we had my picture from Gleasons boxing gym in Brooklyn, and the results are now in. So we're just going to have a little quick flick through. And yeah, so there's a clear winner. It's Ryan's picture. He won 9 votes to 7 for my picture. So it was kind of close, but Ryan pulled away in the end. So there you go, Ryan. How do you feel?
Fantastic. I've prepared a little speech to do. So yeah, thank you very much. And we'll start with a few. Hi guys, this week we're going to be editing my photograph. It was taken in Addo Elephant National Park in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. It was a great experience. We were on safari and this bull elephant was the first we saw walking towards us while we were on the jeep. Settings were shutter speed 3200, an ISO of 100 and an f-stop of 2.8. Hope you like it and I hope you like our edits. My photo, so straight away I'm going to go for the crop. I love the 16:9. I think it works well with the horizon line here, so I'm just going to get that right. Got the elephant right in the middle. I'm going to keep it that way, and then I'm not going to change too much. You know, a little bit on the contrast, a little bit on the clarity, just to bring out the wrinkles and the lines of the elephant when you zoom in. Dehaze, I like what it does to the color on dehaze as well. Always works well. And then the main point that I go for is the color on this one. I've straight away jumped into the individual greens because I want the greens in the bush to really stand out. I've done the standard little bit of sharpening, little tiny bit of noise reduction, but not much because I want that detail in his skin. I've then obviously a tiny bit of vignette, and then I moved on to my second main point, which I've edited, is this bit. It's a bit of bush that's out of focus. I've used the spot edit tool. So as you can see, the spot edit there to try and get rid of it. I don't quite like how it's got rid of it. So normally I would jump this into Photoshop and really get rid of the bush there. But you can see how it's worked in a certain way. You can kind of get an idea of how I wanted it. But again, you can still see the darkness and the slight blurry smudge that's there. So yeah, I'd jump it into Photoshop and get rid of it properly. And then yeah, just again, a little tiny tweaks for some shadows, but I wanted to keep it quite natural. I like the color of the original photo. The blacks, I love the shadow on the right-hand side of the elephant. I really like that. So I've darkened down the blacks there to bring that deep black shadow on his side. And then yeah, I decided to take the orange out of him, but then I didn't like that. So I've moved it back and actually gone the other way, brought the oranges in. Because I've moved the color on the greens and made that more vibrant, I've then kept that bright orange in there. Played around with the sky again, but I liked how you had the 3 colors. You had the orange, the green and the blue, so I wanted to keep that nice and bold, nice and vibrant and really striking. Played a little bit on the vignette. I wasn't happy with the vignette, how it did it there, so I've decided to move the crop down just a touch. You can see a little bit more of the path. And then I've used the gradient vignette tool, which you'll see in just a second, just to, I don't know, blur out the front a little bit, give that some depth, and then bring your eye line straight into the elephant. And yeah, I think it's worked. I quite like it. I doubted myself a little bit on doing that, but I like how it's just striking. It's straight away into the elephant's eyes as it's walking towards you. I think the darkness, the moodiness of it really stands out for me on this one. So yeah, not too much editing, a lot of contrast on the colors, but I've really kept it solid and kept the main focus on the elephant. I've not changed any other focus on it. So yeah, had a little look again, doubting myself a little bit with the greens and the blues. Wanted to check and made sure I got them right, but not over vibrant, over contrasty where it starts to look fake. Well, no, I'm really happy with it. So yeah, I am finished. So there's my final photograph. So what do you think?
Oh yeah, I really like it. I like how, because you got the shadow like on the one side of the elephant's face, a lot more accentuated than what I went for. But what I like about that is it makes it really feel more like a portrait in a way, like because I think you get more of a sense of character from the elephant because it makes the elephant seem you know, makes the overall picture seem more nostalgic, and therefore it gives the elephant a bit more character. And the shot's really nice as well, by the way, just how it's straight on. Like, having been on safari myself only once, I found that so difficult to get just an elephant looking at me. So that's an amazing shot just to begin with. And the actual picture, you know, your settings in camera were nailed. So, you know, there wasn't actually too much for you to do. But I like what you've done, especially the gradient at the bottom. Just adds a bit of drama to it, kind of like there's a cloud behind you casting a shadow as the elephant walks towards you. So it's quite theatrical, the entire thing.
Yeah, I doubted that.
Yeah, I think the thing I like about it as well is, and obviously like you can see mine after and I've gone a completely different direction, but I like actually how it's gone from that like orange color, like, because obviously like the elephants, they roll around in the mud, and I cover it on because it's like, what is it? It's like sunscreen for their skin, right? Yeah. So it's nice actually where the color shift is, like, because it's obviously gone really orange on one side, and where the shadow lies, it's gone to like maybe more of that like natural skin color that the elephant would have.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and it's such a nice contrast with like the green and stuff in the background. Like, definitely like a solid nail of contrast straight in the center.
Was the colors of it I wanted. That's why I played with the greens a little bit, the oranges and the blues of the sky, because I just thought there's 3 colors in the whole photo, so let's really pump them, get them vibrant. And I'm really happy with the final. Well, I was really happy with the original photo. I'm really happy with the final edit as well. So I'm glad you like the gradient along the bottom as well. I thought I'd messed it up there, but no, I'm glad you like that. What are the bad points?
Oh, no.
Well then, give me the bad points. What don't you think, or is there any?
Other than the fact that maybe it's just like, other than the slight saturation, but to be honest, like that's such a personal thing as well. Like, you know, like there's images that need saturation. This one works with it. Maybe a little bit too much than what I would normally do, but that's just me.
Yeah, I can't really comment on the color too much, but for me, all it seems is a touch underexposed still, but that could be my screen I'm looking at. So that's all I'd say, really. Maybe the vignette's a bit heavy for my liking, but again, that's completely personal. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, guys. Right, over to yours. So, Sam, L, we're going to go for yours next.
All right, so yeah, guys, this is my edit I did of Ryan's photo. So first thing I do is I just went in and just changed the like the chromatic aberration, just so it doesn't have like the vignette around the thing, so it just goes in the lens. I then went into a 16:9 crop, similar to like what Ryan did, just because I wanted to do I just wanted to keep like a certain aspect ratio. So I was really just trying to get the elephant dead center and just kind of focus in on him. I then took down my highlights because I really wanted to make the features of the face. I didn't want any of the sun to get in there. I went black and white, guys, because this image was clearly just really dramatic. So I kind of just came in, I reduced the shadows, really making that line harsher so you couldn't see the right side of the elephant's face. Up some whites, down the blacks a little bit, just to make a bit more contrast. Up the texture because I really wanted to bring in, so I zoomed in just so you guys could see, but I just wanted to bring up the texture of the skin on the elephant, just because I think that's such an important detail of this photo. But then after that, I just basically just changed a few more of just changed on the curve, just where like the highlights and like the lights, the darks, just create more contrast. But yeah, like really just wanted to really make, as a black and white image, really wanted to make it really like contrasty. So I went into each individual color, because one great thing about Lightroom is that you can basically go in and just touch up those one little areas. So occasionally I'll just go back from black and white to color just to see what colors are in there, just so I have like an idea. So I just changed basically the oranges, the greens, and down the blues a little bit, just to make it a little bit punchier. I went in and did some split toning. So this is basically just where you make your highlights one color and then your shadows a different color. It just separates the black and white color a little bit more. I just think it gives it a bit more of like an aged look. So that was just like, so right now I'm just really like just basically playing around with these sliders. and just using like blues and yellows to really like make the image like, so it's more like a blue and yellow contrast. I put, similar to Ryan, I did a little bit of what do you call it, changed a little bit of my of the skin detail, just because I wanted to get rid of some of the noise, but I didn't want to get rid of too much. And then just basically a really heavy vignette around it just to make it really contrasty. I then realized it was maybe just a touch too dark, so I've come in just to bring out some of the detail in the tusks, because I really wanted to show off like the all the mud and the cracks from the age, and just like where the tusks have basically taken like a bit of like a weathering and a bit of a beating, and just basically. And then I went in and I brought my shadows down even further, and basically just went over the right side of the image and just basically made it a little darker, just adding like almost like burning in Lightroom, and just kind of kept going in and just trying to make it a little bit darker and a little bit thicker on that right side of the face, and then obviously just darkening up some areas around the elephant as well. You can see where I've kind of just come in and you know, just basically checking my before and after just so I can see, and then just playing with my shadows there just so I know that I've got the right kind of balance. And then I just went in and just upped the exposure of the overall image, just because I thought it might be a bit dark, and as we know from last week, my image was just a little bit too dark. So I just wanted to kind of get it back to that that nice little sweet spot where it was not too bright but not too dark either. And yeah, I think that's my edit. Nice, really good.
Yeah, where to start? Obviously, black and white works so well with that. I love it. 2 points. I love it how you've increased the texture. I don't often use the texture option in Lightroom at all, but I think it really works. You can see the detail, the mud, everything on the elephant's skin. I thought that worked really well. And then, yeah, when you were editing the individual colours in black and white, that's something I don't think about at all. I thought that was really interesting because you could see the picture just changing colour. Even though it's black and white, you could see different highlights coming through, different elements of the whole photo getting darker, getting lighter. I thought that's a really good way to edit black and white photos. So that's something that I'm going to work on, which is good. And then, yeah, I was thinking right up until the end, it's still too dark. You're doing it like last week, it's still too dark. And I thought, you've done it again. And then you just put the exposure up just enough. And I think that really worked. Yeah, I think that's absolutely superb. Edit that. And bringing out the detail in the tusks as well. That's really, because you know, they are contrasted where they are on the elephant. It's a dark area. I thought that was really good. Yeah, I'm really impressed with that.
Yeah, one of the so going back to like using like the texture, one thing that I love actually about with I think the texture update came sometime last year or late 2018. Texture has basically just been the best thing ever, because it's like it's basically clarity, but you're just not destroying the image. Like clarity I find so harsh. So it sometimes brightens up your image too much, whereas the texture just goes in and just makes those lines sharper. And I just think it adds so much. Like it's just one of my favorite sliders in all of Lightroom, and it's probably one that I use probably more out of everything in Lightroom itself. So yeah,
I've not really got much to add to that, other than I liked how when you had the adjustment brush and you're just going through the details on the trunk, there was a lot of attention to detail in the actual contours of the elephant, and just a real overall appreciation for how unique this picture is. You know, like a lot of the things I did in my edit, which you'll see soon, were kind of general changes that you'd make to a lot of different pictures, but yours are quite unique and pertinent to this picture and this picture only. So there was just a lot of thought going into it, which was really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you do black and white as well, you need to kind of black and white. You have to really think about bringing out more character. Whereas, like in color, you can bring your point of focus to quite a lot of different areas. But in black and white, it's normally just like it's normally like an isolated subject and really like trying to create contrast. So, I mean, that's kind of where I went. So like, you know, it's completely dark on like the right side of the elephant's face, and then completely like, and I think that really shows off like a nice, like a really cool like personality also, just like it's got like this darkness to it. But yeah, thanks guys.
We're going to jump into my edit now, and here we go. So, like in last week's picture, I always start with the crop. So, I mean, I stopped to look at the picture for a while because I wasn't entirely sure what crop I was going to go with, because I wanted to do something different than last time, than my usual 10:8 crop. So I was trying to look at the elephant and just get a gauge for like the specific shadows on its face and the lighting and the contours. Because I thought about going really tight in to the elephant originally and just ignoring all the background. But then I decided that would be, you wouldn't get much context that way. So the way I've tried to approach this edit is to make it cinematic. So that's why I went for the 18:9 crop rather than 16:9, just to make it feel a bit more widescreen. However, I felt when I made it so like, you know, panoramic in that sense, there was a bit too much headroom cut off, and I just felt the photo felt a bit tight. So I do adjust the crop later on for that reason. But then for the time being, it was just basically a case of going through the basic sliders first of all, just to get a feel for the picture. However, though, I think the picture from the beginning, like I've already said, was taken with really good settings in camera, with a really good camera as well. So there wasn't really too much editing necessary, but as this is GladiEditors, we want to do all the editing we can do. So then here's what I mean about adjusting the crop and giving it a bit more headroom. I feel like headroom's something that's overlooked quite a lot, just because now if you look at the elephant's eyes, if you imagine the rule of thirds grid going up from the bottom, it hopefully, as you can see here, its eyes are in line with that top third of the grid, as you can just see there. So they're just in that top third. That's what giving it a bit more headroom does. And then just a moment ago, I just went down and just adjusted the horizontal slider. So it just changed the perspective of the picture a little bit. Just because I don't know whether it was my angle of the laptop, but I felt like the photo wasn't like perfectly straight on, which obviously on a Safari, that's almost impossible to do anyway. But I just felt like adjusting that slider helped with that perspective slightly. And then something I do to this picture, which is different than either of you guys, and I'm not sure I actually like what I did, but after adjusting the sharpening and using the masking slider just to get the sharpening more on the highlights rather than the shadows, I've added gradients again, which is something that I obviously really like to do. And if I just go through a little bit more, here we go. So if you see the grain slider now, I put the grain up really high because when I was mentioning earlier about having that wide aspect ratio to make it feel cinematic, I wanted, in that sense, for the photograph to feel like it was shot on film as well. So then adding that grain in tandem with what Sam was saying earlier about having like a lot of texture in the picture, I felt was going to make the photograph feel a bit more real. But I realized when I made this change, I was fairly into the edit anyway, so I couldn't really go back and then start again. And I wasn't really feeling what I did, but I decided to go with it anyway and make it work. So that was the biggest thing I'd probably do differently if I was to edit this picture again. But anyway, I've got the gradients in place, as I say. So in the top right of the picture, obviously you can tell where the shadow is on the elephant's face on the elephant's right-hand side, where the light source is coming from. So I wanted to accentuate that a bit more. And obviously you can see how in both of your pictures, the shadows are a lot darker, so there's a lot more contrast. But I've tried quite hard in this edit to sort of level out the contrast a little bit and try and see a bit more detail on the elephant's right-hand side of his face, assuming the elephant is male. I don't know. But I felt like in doing that, it maybe doesn't work quite as well with lifting the grain as well as lifting the shadows. So the two of them maybe don't speak to each other that well, because then you're getting quite a lot of noise in the picture, which I did intend to do, but maybe it's a bit distracting. And if I would have liked to have edited it in black and white, honestly. But I carry on with the color version of the picture, and using a few more gradients here. I quite like how, I know, Ryan, you got rid of the little branch on the left hand side of the picture, but I kind of liked it because it gave it a little bit of depth, a little bit of foreground perspective. So adding a gradient at the bottom left of the image and darkening that made it feel like I was shooting through something. And then here I go down to the defringe, and I'm just looking to see if normally on like the edge of a picture where it goes from light to dark really abruptly, there's a little bit of color fringing, but I couldn't find any in this picture. So just to make doubly sure, I go into the adjustment slider and just get rid of all the magenta, just to make sure there wasn't anything distracting around the image, and you're just looking at a few main colors that are in there. On that point, I played with the blues in the background, so the sky wasn't as dark blue. I changed the luminance slightly and adjusted the blue saturation so it wasn't as distracting, the blues in the sky. And using the hues and the saturation sliders, I wanted the picture to feel a bit more earthy. So I've taken the greens down a little bit and tried to make them a bit browner, just to make the photograph feel a bit dirtier in a sense, to kind of match how the elephant is quite dirty and caked in mud as well. And then just giving the curve here just a little bit of tender love and care. I don't really do anything specific there. I just like to lift the shadows again, but at the same time just increase the contrast a bit more as well, because I felt like the picture overall was lacking a little bit of punch to it. So that's what I'm just trying to correct now, really. And then in this final minute, I'm just trying to add a few finishing touches, to be honest. It's just a case of trying to decide if the photograph is actually better than the original. So that's what I just was looking at there. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know if I quite think it was a good idea to desaturate it so much, but playing with the vibrance and saturation, I always find that taking the saturation down and increasing the vibrance just gives me a little bit more control of all the colors, rather than just increasing the saturation as a whole. So that's what I did there. And then just having a few final touches, and then I do believe, just another gradient, because you can't have too many gradients, of course. And just darkening that again, just trying to create that perspective of shooting through something. So then this is the final picture I ended up with. Like I said, I think if I was to do it again, black and white would be a great way just to get all the character across in this picture. But I feel like I've kind of gone along my trail of thought of trying to make it look cinematic, but it's whether I kind of detracted from the image as a whole by adding too much noise, I think would be my only qualm with the picture. But what do you guys think?
I mean, the only thing I really like how you've like opened up the face a little bit more, so it's not quite as contrasty. Like obviously me and Ryan have gone in a very similar direction in the way that we've contrasted our images, whereas you've vibranced it up. And I also quite like what you've done with the foliage, like, you know, all of the grass around, like the little trees and the bush and stuff that are around him. It's quite what's the word? It's you've taken out some of that color, so you've put definitely more focus onto the elephant. So I think that's definitely like a nice draw. And I think you saved it a little bit there by adding that little bit of contrast towards the end.
Yeah, for sure.
It was starting to get a little bit flat in the middle, and I was worried that you might not be able to pick it back up. But then you added that contrast back in, so now you're right. It's got that. It has got like a little bit of depth, and I can see that. It's not generally the direction I would go in, but to be honest, like that's the idea of this channel. The idea is to see how each one of us would edit each photo. So, you know, if this is what you're happy with, then that's it, right?
I'm happy with it, but I know myself there's things I'd do differently, I think. So I wanted to try something different, and I feel like I know what worked and what didn't, but I'm glad I tried something anyway.
I like
just
it.
To experiment.
Earthy. I think that's a perfect way to describe the photo. You get this, like, I don't know, rugged, earthy feel that it's all natural light. It's in a hot desert, when obviously Sam's without the colour in it, you don't get that deserty feel, you know, hot day feel. Mine is so contrasty with the blue skies, the oranges and the greens. This just feels a bit more like, I don't know, a bit more real, a bit more earthy, as natural almost. And it's interesting that you brought out the left-hand side of the elephant and you can see his eye. Like, I think on mine, I don't even think you can see his eye in that detail. So it's interesting seeing, I don't know, the other half of the elephant as such. And you made me, when you mentioned the comment about the foreground with that bush in the side, that it's made me think, oh, wouldn't it have been great if there was more of that, you know, and it would have been like you were really in the bush looking through. So I like how you've made that a thing, and it just makes me think, oh, I wish there was more in the photo instead of me just trying to take it out completely.
But were you on safari? Were you in like one of the cars at the time?
On the back of a Land Rover.
So, you know, it's what you could work with, I guess, at the end of the day. If there wasn't a bush there to show it through, then
if Ryan was allowed out of the car, if Ryan was out of the car, he would have a glass of rum in, like a bottle of rum in one hand, and trying to stroke the elephant, trying to ride it.
I think I did have a beer in my hand while taking this photo, or I may have put it down to take the photo.
That's why. So that's why it's not straight.
Straight. Near enough.
Well, I don't know. Actually, was that something you think was necessary when I adjusted the horizontal slider? Just change that perspective, not that way, but this way. I don't know why I felt like I needed to do that now. Looking at both your pictures, but I don't think you can even tell the difference anyway.
It worked with the other side of the elephant's face. I think it's helped bring that into context a bit more. So whether it's the actual, you know, the horizontalness anyway, but yeah, to bring the face in, it just, I don't know, brings him round a little bit more. So yeah, I like it. And I like, the one bit in my photo that I'm not too keen on is the blue background. It's so, that makes it look a little bit fake. And with you taking it out, or, you know, near enough taking it out, I think it doesn't look fake. It looks more real or earthy, as you said. Yeah,
that's what I tried to go for. But yeah, you know, there we are. It's a great picture though. Anyway, you know, it's overall, like I said, you didn't even have to edit it from the beginning. To be honest, you could just add a bit more. You know, bring the exposure up a bit, and then that's that. So there's a lesson to be learned straight away. Try and get the photograph as good as you can in camera before then you edit it, because you can save yourself loads of time, and it's all in all a more efficient process. So okay, so now we've got all three pictures side by side. The difference, as you were saying, Ryan, it is actually quite dramatic, even though, you know, like yours and Sam's are quite contrasty. Well, first of all, Sam's is clearly unique and different than both of ours, Ryan. But even though yours is colour as well, yours looks completely different again to mine. So this is the part where, even though it's three of us looking at three completely different pictures, it's impossible for us to say objectively which one is the best overall, because they're all just so different and going off across their own different kind of ways of editing. It is kind of personal preference in that sense. But I don't know. I do think though, Sam, yours, just because it's black and white, I think there's a lot of character in that picture, and I think it's just a really good dramatic picture of the elephant, I think, as well. So
yeah, I think
I like that.
Yeah, I think with like black and white, it's so kind of easy to like lose yourself in a black and white, because when you see black and white photos, they're normally like stronger and have more depth and meaning, I think, sometimes when you look at them, like, and you know, so Sam, like yours is like really open, and like the way that Ryan said it is actually probably a good way to describe it, like that really like earthy kind of like natural feel. Whereas mine, you can kind of see where I've isolated my subject so much. I haven't messed around too much and worrying about like the surrounding it's in. I've tried to focus mostly just on the elephant, hence why like I made such a heavy vignette. So there's things I would maybe change, like maybe I would have focused a little bit more, like, you know, maybe brightened up those areas a little bit more, but overall I'm quite happy with just the general like the kind of feeling I was going for it. And then Ryan's is, you know, me and Ryan went very similar directions, making it really contrasty, not not brightening it up too much, like keeping that side of his face like completely in shadow, because that is, you know, the sun was coming in from like one side of the image and then not reaching the other side. So it's nice to have that, like, also that really like natural feel as well. But I'm also editing in perspective of, you know, seeing 1,000 other wildlife photos of elephants. It's like, it's very easy as well just to kind of take inspiration from like all my, like, you know, all my favorite photographers out there as well.
It'd be interesting to see actually how similar yours and Ryan's is if Ryan made his black and white at some point down the line, because I reckon they'd actually, just that change alone, because of the contrast, it maybe look quite similar.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Interesting, because like you said, we've gone down that contrasty route. So I might give that a go and see how similar they are. But seeing them all three together, it does look really good. I think mine's really punchy with the colour. Sam's, yours is quite earthy with that colour. You know, it is like a dusty, hot day. And then the black and white, I do really like the black and white edit. Really good. So, yeah, right, we're going to have to put it over to the audience now, aren't we? So they have now decided, and we're going to announce the winner shortly.
I'm ready.
Entertain me, Ryan.
Entertain me over the right side of the image, and just hopefully my mum won't betray me this time.
My laptop's got 5 minutes left.
What? Did you see that?